His environment too.
He doesn't mind.
To get over to you.
Oh, the what?
The bottom of the plaza resolution. When I get to the bottom of it, after now therefore be it resolved, blah, 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 I'll just turn it over to you because then you got to get a motion and all that to approve the resolution.
Oh, okay. So we have a resolution
Yeah.
in tribute. Okay.
Yeah, there's names and names and so
Okay. I didn't realize that. Thanks.
in other words, I know my place.
Okay. Please come in and take a seat. No? All right. Good evening, and welcome to the August 15, 2023 regular meeting for the Township Board, Charter Township of Meridian. Please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is the roll call. Mr. Lemeth, Mr. Spurlock.
Supervisor Jackson.
Here.
Clerk Guthrie.
Here.
Treasurer DeShane.
Here.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Here.
Trustee Sunland.
Here.
Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Wazinski. Absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And 4 on our agenda is presentations. We have 4 tonight. The first will be a retirement tribute to Police Chief Plaga, Mr. Walsh.
He's trying to hide.
Chief Plaga, would you please join Mr. Walsh?
Yes, ma'am, Supervisor. So before I read the resolution, I was going to tell you about a phone call that I had today. It was with a candidate to be our next police chief. And they were doing some of their own research to find out if this is a place where they wanted to be. And the person asked me an interesting question. They said, what are the top 5 qualities or things that you're looking for in the next police chief? And I paused and thought to myself, can I call you back? I thought that was a really interesting question. And so I called that person back after lunch and I wrote down these 5 things. Number 1, building trust within the department. Building trust within the community. Recruiting and retaining talent. Effective and transparent communication. And of course, community safety. Those are the 5 things I think that when our panels and the board looks and recommends the next police chief. And then I got thinking about Chief Plaga's 29 years here. I can only speak to 10 of those. I can speak to 5 of them as chief, and the 5 before that when he served as assistant chief, and I think captain? Assistant chief, captain. Many people don't realize some of the things that we've been through. We tend to forget those things, but I don't. I remember back when we were going through the Brianne Randall, remember in 2018? Chief Plaga was then Assistant Chief Plaga. And as you recall, the department and many others who were standing in this room had to go through 17 years of reports looking for anything that may have been missed. This gentleman to my left led that review of 17 years and did an excellent job with it. There are many, many examples that I can tell you of what Chief Plaga has meant to this department. So this tribute this evening encapsulates a 29-year career, and not just here, but before this in Blackman Township and Napoleon Township. But whereas Chief Ken Plaga was born in Jackson, Michigan to Charlie and Bev Plaga, whereas Ken was raised near the Dairy Queen in Michigan Center and graduated from Jackson Women Christi High School, and whereas Ken went on to attend and graduate from Jackson Community College with an associate's degree, Michigan State University with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and Western Michigan University with a master's degree in public administration. Whereas Ken began his law enforcement career with Blackman Charter Township, which is a township just north of Jackson, the city of Jackson, in Jackson County, and as a part-time reserve in Napoleon Township, which is right next to Brooklyn, close to the MIS racetrack. And whereas in 1996, Ken and Holly exchanged vows in Jackson, Michigan, and whereas on September 6, 1995, Ken joined the Meridian Township Police Department as a patrol officer, and whereas on December 8, 1999, Ken was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and whereas on April 12, 2005, Ken was promoted to the rank of lieutenant, and whereas on February 18, 2016, then Chief Hall came to me and asked me about promoting Ken to the assistant chief position, in which we did. Whereas on Thursday, July 26, 2018, at Jack's Restaurant in Charlevoix, Michigan, in front of many of his law enforcement colleagues, Chief Plaga was officially named Meridian Township Police Chief. Long story behind that, but it was meaningful and well planned out. Whereas on Monday, August 26th, almost 4 years to the date of retirement, Chief Plaga, and it should be, I believe, Ed Bessinen, Sergeant Bessinen? Yes. Sergeant Bessinen jumped into Walden Pond and rescued an elderly woman from her sinking car. And whereas Chief Plaga has served as a national and statewide speaker on the relationship building with Nassar survivor Brianne Randall Gay, both of us attended and spoke in Nashville, and we spoke in Charlevoix on that subject. Whereas the Meridian Township Board, our 45,000 residents, and our entire township team wish Chief Plaga a long, healthy retirement. And whereas the community of Meridian will always cherish the excellent leadership provided by Chief Plaga. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Board of the Charter Township of Meridian, Ingham County, Michigan, hereby officially names August 25th, 2023 as Chief Plaga Day in Meridian Township. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate it very much. I've spent more time with Meridian than any other organization. I'm taking another course in my career, a new chapter. I'll miss the people that I've known, worked with, and cared about. But I'm not gone. I'm not dead. I'll still be around. I'll still be watching Rick and Bart, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So. But I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Frank. I want to thank my colleagues, the rest of the directors, the M team, and the board for recognizing me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. First, we have a resolution before us. Should we add the approval of the resolution to our agenda as we get to that point?
So when we get to approve of the agenda, you'd like to add an amendment?
An amendment to the agenda.
Okay, at that time? Okay.
Everyone in agreement with that? Okay. So at this time, item 4B on our agenda relates to a tribute to Quenda Story, a valued citizen that we've lost.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
Marna Wilson will provide that tribute.
I have to say, it's a tough follow-up to Ken's service, and what a wonderful job he's done for our township. I wish to speak tonight about a friend of mine for almost 40 years who gave so much time and energy to the township of Meridian. Longtime resident, Meridian Township resident Quenda Story died on August 6th, 2023, leaving a legacy of community activism on behalf of residents. Married to Don for more than 40 years, they raised 2 children in the Forest Hills neighborhood that they never left. Quenda was born in Arkansas and attended Wayne State University, where she obtained her law degree. After a brief period of private practice in Detroit, she moved to Okemos in 1983. Quenda was a woman of many talents. She was a contracts law professor at Cooley Law School. Many of her students are prominent attorneys who are still practicing, and some have retired. She was a published author on construction law, job sites, safety, and science for senior citizens. You can still find her books on Amazon. Quenda was a voracious reader. She loved libraries. In the early 1990s, she joined the board of the Friends of the Okemos Library and held the offices of vice president and secretary during her decades-long tenure. In 2002, the Meridian Township Board appointed Quenda to represent township interests on the Capital Area District Library Board, that's CATL. She served in this role for 15 years, and in 2017, Supervisor Ron Stika honored her with a certificate of appreciation for her dedicated service. Quenda was a believer in grassroots organization. She was a longtime member of the Forest Hills Homeowners Association Board. In 1986, when a 22-store strip mall was proposed that would encroach on her neighborhood, Quenda and others led the push to acquire green space to separate the commercial area away from the neighborhood. Donating her legal expertise pro bono, the neighborhood prevailed in obtaining a 4-acre green space buffer. It is now a township park. Her actions set a precedent for other neighborhoods to negotiate such buffers. Her legal expertise on zoning issues, development, building codes, and ordinances was generously shared. She directly supported several individuals who ran for office in the township. She herself ran for the township board in 1992. An outspoken advocate for residents, she addressed the township board on many occasions. Quenda was known as intellectual, passionate, and kind. The township board recognizes and honors Quenda Story's legacy as an outstanding contributor to the Meridian Township community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, item 4C is an Eagle Scout project that we will hear from
A little bit from me.
Fire Chief, Fire Chief Hamill.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and Board. James, you want to come on up? So it was about a year ago, I actually met these two when we were doing the cleanup out here on a Saturday. Rotary and these guys and their team came, and we were talking about the fire service because he's actually interested someday maybe in the fire service. And a couple weeks ago came to me and wanted to talk about an Eagle Scout project. I'm going to let him talk about it, but we're really excited about it. It'll bring some beautification to the township, fire stations, and I'm going to let James do all the talking. Come on up, James.
Good evening, council members and members of the community. want to thank you for having me here tonight to speak with you about my Eagle Scout project. I'm here representing both myself and Troop 97. My proposed project is a small serenity garden with a few benches and some nice flowers to pretty up the area. It will be established on the south side of the central fire station where there is a small unused square of grass. I believe this area could be put to better use for both the community members and firefighters who are stationed there. I think that this small garden will be a great addition for them and for anyone who would be hosting a meeting at the fire station. While we still need to figure out some fundraising issues, any remaining money will be given to Troop 97 for less fortunate scouts to use. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson?
Right, sorry, questions. Apologies, I'm so new to this.
My first question is, typically when members of the public come to speak to us, we ask them first to give us their name and address. Would you do that for us tonight?
James Robinson Jr., 2215 Bertram Drive.
Thank you. Thank you. And do you have anything to add to your comment or your troop leader?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Public board members, you have comments, or Trustee Wilson?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I have a question. When do you plan to install the Serenity space?
I believe in September.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. And thank you, James, for bringing this to us. I was a Life Scout with Troop 1702 in Troy, Michigan, and I know how challenging these projects are and how much goes into them. And I'm sure that you've put in a lot of hard work already. And I just wanted to thank you for bringing this to the Central Fire Station and working with Chief Hamill. We all look forward to the results of your project.
Thank you very much, sir.
Treasurer DeShane?
Thank you, James, for bringing this to the board. You can't go into one of our parks and not find an Eagle Scout project there. Eagle Scouts have enhanced the public space in Meridian Township greatly over the years, and Troop 97 has been a sponsor of many of those Scout projects, particularly over at Harris now. There's 3 or 4 that I can think of. And the Serenity space at the fire station is a perfect add-on. The high-stress work that they do there all the time, they have a place in nature to relax and take in nature. It's well put there. So look forward to seeing this happen next year or later this year, and I'm glad you're part of the community.
Thank you.
Clerk Guthrie?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Thank you for bringing this project to us. I know it's a lot of hard work. My mom and I were den leaders for a number of years with my boys. So I have 2 questions for you. One is, how did you come up with this idea? It's fabulous. And 2, how are you going to pursue your donations, and how can people donate since you have a TV platform here?
I can't quite remember how I came up with this idea. Oh, actually, yes. I remembered a previous Eagle Scouts service project involved building benches at a nearby park. I believe it was Ethan Olds. Is that right?
Yeah, Ethan Olds did a project over at the park just on the street here. He did a barrier between the pond and the grassy area with native plants.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
just
right.
west of here, just a few feet.
I didn't get that.
We got it though. And then how would people donate or get in contact with you if they're interested, or?
I would recommend talking to my scoutmaster. Although I can't remember his email off the top of my head.
Okay.
Apologies.
All right, well, we have your contact information through Chief Hamels, so we can figure it out for certain. Thank you.
I think just in case, if there's somebody that does want to donate something, Chief Hamill would be a great point of contact. Go through the fire station. We have two parts of funding that we need. Part of it is for wood and materials, and then he has also the plants that are going to require a separate donation for those as well. But somebody wants to contact the fire station, it's a public entity, we can easily work through that.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Thank you both and Troop 97 for your contributions to the community. We look forward to your completion of your project.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We now move to item 4D, which involves the Okemos Solar Racing Club recognition by Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. For all the hits that social media have about negativity, there are some great things on there, like discovering that the Okemos School District has a Okemos Solar Racing Club, and B, that they won a national championship. And so I am very excited to introduce the captain and the team, but actually he's going to do all the work here and introduce what their team does, how they built this car, and all of his teammates for coming here. And thank you all for being here tonight.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Jun Hong. I'm a junior at Okemos High School, and I'm the captain of the Okemos Solar Racing Club. So we are a student-led group of entirely high school students, junior and under, at Okemos High School, dedicated to designing, building, and creating a fully functioning, drivable, solar-powered vehicle. Last year, I transferred to Okemos from the Chicago area, and I found out that Okemos had a solar racing team in 2019. I thought that was really cool, but I later found out that they were disbanded. So I was like, oh, hey, why would I not build a car of my own? So towards the end of my sophomore year, I gathered a group of kids. These are a lot of the members, but there are more, and formed a club. Towards the summer, we began design of the car. We spent hundreds of hours designing, making sure that everything was right. And towards the winter, the beginning of my junior school year, we gathered and we started building some basic parts of the car, such as the frame, and adding on components such as the wheels, the steering, and brakes. During this, we persevered through many challenges. There were things that went wrong, things that did not go right, things we did not expect, problems such as fundraising, parts breaking, and time constraints. But we were able to persevere through all that. So around spring, around March, after thousands of hours put into the car, we were finally able to get the car rolling. This was a huge, it was a huge landmark for us. After that, we spent even more hours building and constructing the car to meet all the regulations imposed us by the Solar Car Challenge, which is the national competition held in Texas every year. So towards the end of the school year, all of us gathered and we decided that we would spend every day in the Okemos High School garage building and working on this solar car, spending somewhere between 6 to 15 hours every day. And after a month and a half of work, we departed for Texas on July 10th. We arrived there and they inspected our car rigorously for 3 days in the very, very hot weather, and we were finally able to pass. After that was done, we embarked on our long journey. So the competition consists of 8 days of racing on real roads with other high school solar car teams. And it takes place from Dallas, Texas to Palmdale, California, which is roughly a 900-mile journey. And we were able to embark on the journey, which was just amazing. During that, we raced, and we were only able to race for 3 days, which was unfortunate. The reason for that was because there was a COVID outbreak and the race got cut short. However, on the third day, and all the days actually, we drove really well, and we were able to drive a total of 227.4 miles, and we secured first place. Yeah, so not all the members are here, but these are some of our very important core members. So this, I'll just start from left to right. So this is Arav Zucchi, Alex Kong, David Reed, David Shi, Suaz Pachipalusu, and Hao Tian Li.
There's a certificate on behalf of the Meridian Township Board congratulating you on your achievements. You'll have to make a copy for all of you. And so congratulations, thank you. Yeah. Did you want to take a picture? If you all want to come together.
In the meantime, we'd like to congratulate you and thank you for such an inspiring story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
There you go. Thank you.
I'm presuming board members had no questions.
No, it's very
The story was
Yeah,
very,
super
very
impressive.
explanatory. We move now to item 5 on our agenda, where citizens address agenda items and non-agenda items. I have not collected any green cards today, but if there's anyone here who would like to participate in public comment at this time, please come to the podium. Seeing none, then we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda. It's the Township Manager's Report. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and Board. Just a few things to see. Boy, when I look back at the last 25 minutes, I see Chief Plaga, and I knew Quinda really well. And I see James, and then I see the solar team. This place is in good hands. We've talked about the budget a lot in the last few meetings. The budget's completed in a draft form. I can't say enough about the leadership of Interim Director Bernie Blondie. She took the reins from the beginning and has done an excellent job. She's been assisted in this past little over a week by Director Ayani. We spent a lot of time on this budget. It's a $60 million budget. It's balanced. The general fund's about $27 million. It's focused on sustainability and green. We'll be bringing that to you at your next meeting, and I'm available at any time between now and it's a little different because we have people in the building who are board members who have, a lot of involvement, and then we have some of you who are trustees and just not able to be as involved because you're not here every day. So plenty of time if you want to look that over and sit down and talk about it before September 5th when we have our public hearing. We also met twice with the M team and all the directors to go over it. We met last Monday, and I believe we made around $135,000 worth of amendments to the budget based on the input from all the directors. And following that, we made another large investment here in the last week in the fire department, and more to come on that later when we go through the budget. The building rededication is scheduled for August 31st at 10 o'clock. Be right out here. We'll cut a ribbon to the rededication of after 50 years of remodeling the building. I believe there's better news. In fact, when I walked in this morning, Director Massey had what we think is good news. We're not sure yet, but we believe that most of the materials that were supposed to be coming in late September are actually here. I haven't had an update since this morning, but I believe that that might be the case. So we'll keep you posted because we might be able to get everyone in sooner than what we thought. But certainly the clerk's office and the treasurer's office will be in and operating certainly in or around the 31st. And especially it's important for the treasurer's office because they're right in the throes of tax collection. I think once they move in, they'll have 2 more weeks of tax collection. I can't say enough about how everybody's worked together on this and come together as a team. It's really been something to see and great leadership by Dan and Melissa. You may notice that there was a little something missing on our entry signs to the township out here, and that was there was nothing directing us to the police department. And we needed to have something. I mean, it's nice to have a sign to the historical village and the things, but it's really important to let people know that are on Central Park Drive and Marsh Drive that this is the police department. Those new additions are in. They're very bold. They really stand out, and you can see now that this is the police department. And I appreciate Chief Plog and his team's patience as we've worked through that. It was a little something we missed along the way. We have a $1.5 million payment contribution that we're sitting on that needs to go to MERS. And we're meeting this week on determining how to make that payment that's included in the police and fire, $750,000 each fund. We need to make that contribution to MERS. Remember, we make it to a surplus fund. The reason we make it to a surplus fund and not the actual fund is because if we put in the actual fund, it would artificially lower the ARC, the required contribution. If I paid a lot more in my mortgage, I could lower my mortgage. That's the same concept. We could lower how much we would owe. But we committed to the voters back in 2017 that we would not artificially lower our payment by doing that. And we continue to do that. We met with Eagle through Teams yesterday, Director Clark and Director Schmidt. They handled that meeting. I was a participant. And that's about the grant and loans for the Village of Okemos. They've given 5 extensions, and there's probably not going to be another extension. And so we'll have to work through that. I feel pretty good about all of it because through it all, we have a good relationship with Eagle. And I think regardless of how we end up in October or November, we'll be able to come back in 2024 when this project moves forward and use that relationship to our benefit. The Pride event is coming up. It's a week from Saturday on the 26th. I'm told we have quite a few racers from Zach, and now we are actually runners outnumber. It's a little competition. I'm trying to get more dogs. Zach's trying to get more runners, and he's beating me by 3 right now. So if you want to put your dog in the doggy parade, we would welcome that. And Zach's hosting a successful run event on that day. So it's going to be a great event. I think it's 4 to 10 at the marketplace. Come on out and celebrate our community. We did name an interim police chief last Monday. Captain Rick Grillo will assume the duties of interim police chief for the township effective at 5 o'clock on August 25th. Very confident in Captain Grillo's ability. He'll pick up right off where Chief Plaga left off, and he and Captain Crane will do a great job leading the department. Speaking of that, the police chief recruitment process is well underway. Today was the deadline. We received, as of around noon, there could have been more that came in later on. I'm not sure yet. I'll find out tomorrow. Those have been coming through the HR office. We have, I think, 17 so far. Out of those, I've done an initial vetting. I've asked Director Tehoff today to do a vetting as well before we set up some Zoom interviews. But there are 9 candidates of the 17 that require a lot of additional research. We have a lot of candidates with excellent command experience. So the way this will work is that we'll Zoom the committee of 5, which includes Supervisor Jackson and Trustee Wazinski, and then Director Tehoff, Chief Hamill, and myself, we will zoom in with all 8 or 9 candidates and select 5 finalists. And those 5 finalists then will move on to a double interview stage, which will be September 13th and September 20th. There will be 10 folks involved in those 2 panels, and it'll include both police unions, and Joyce Van Coovering as a citizen representative, and many others. The Parks and Rec recruitment, the director's position, that will begin immediately following once we work our way along. I expect the first week of September we'll be far enough along in the police chief recruitment that we'll start the Parks and Rec director recruitment. The local road program continues to go well. We're actually way ahead of schedule on getting the 2024 road list bid out, and Assistant Manager Opsimer is working on that project and getting it out. Okemos Schools has reached out. Superintendent John Hood would like to meet with us and talk about our, I wouldn't say relationship about all the fields that we have together, all the collective things, the senior center, the use of the fields. I don't believe, Chief Plag, I don't believe they're involved in the school resource officer. So we won't be talking about that, but we'll be talking about a lot of things, and that meeting is coming up in the next week. The pension board is another thing we need to focus on. The pension board has not met regularly, and we really, I know I've talked about it, it needs to happen, and Director Ianni is working on that, and we'll begin that. Other than when we had that crisis about a year ago, major crisis, what I call it, because we had 2 pensioners that had big issues, and I want to again credit Director Tehoff for working. That was tedious and difficult, and work through that all the way to the end. But the pension board needs to get on a regular schedule and be looking at the actuarial reviews that we get in and having a firm grasp on our pension. A final reminder, Chief Plaga's retirement party is August 25th at the Marketplace. That's Friday, his last day of service to the township from 2 to 4. And the listening sessions begin on September 12th. So starting on September 5th, basically until Thanksgiving, it's almost every Tuesday. In between the board members, I think there might be one that's off with, we have 5 Tuesdays. But so I'll look forward. I know there's been some discussion. I thought some really good discussion amongst the board about topics, and we'll hone in on that over the next couple weeks and figure that out, and we'll get a letter out for the September 12th. The first meeting is down in the southwest corner of the township, and I believe it's at Bennett Wood School, if I recall, precincts 13, 16, and 17, I believe. So that's all I have tonight. Lots going on, lots of great stuff going on, and we just continue to move forward. And thank you very much. Unless there's any questions, I'll step away.
Okay. Board members, questions? Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is board member reports of activities and announcements. Trustee
Kathy, your hand up first.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I attended the Economic Community Development Corporation meeting on August 3rd, and I totally neglected to put my notes in my carry-on, so I don't have much to report. We were working on a logo, the bag. There'll be a logo that says Meridian Township, and if anybody else has anything to add, you're welcome to add it, because I just totally neglected to bring my notes. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I have reporting on 2 different activities. One is the Community Resource Commission, which will be meeting on the 13th. But in the interim, we're doing 2 major projects. That group is doing 2 major projects. One is having a resource session tomorrow afternoon at Grange Acres for individuals on the subject of the 5 wishes. The 5 Wishes is a nationally recognized program that allows you to do an advance directive. It asks you if you're coming to the end of life or before the end of life, so that you can do some planning and put it in writing. It has the same weight as any other legal document, so it's a wonderful program. It doesn't involve having to have an attorney, so we're going to introduce that to the Grange Acre population and hope to take it out to other groups, including church groups and schools and so on. The second thing the CRC has done is we had a packing party last Tuesday. For those of you who wanted to pack backpacks, we had a fabulous turnout, and we packed 240 backpacks in 28 minutes. It was fantastic. So we have already delivered a group of those backpacks to Hazlet schools, and next Monday at 1 o'clock, we're delivering the balance to all the Okemos schools, and the schools are very grateful. These are backpacks full of school supplies. And the other thing I want to report on is today, the task force on the community/senior center met with bond counsel, and we learned a lot, and we have a much better understanding of what we can do to make this center happen. So it was very fruitful, and we are going to be bringing that information back to the board when it's a little more ripe. Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
You're welcome. Mr. DeShane.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. To add to the backpacking project that was done last week, organized by Meridian Cares, that was funded by the Hazlet Okemos Kiwanis Club, and they got their money from the Flags of Meridian, and over 1,000 people subscribe to that every year, and they do great things like this backpack project.
Thanks, Phil.
The other thing I wanted to mention is a seminar we're sponsoring on September 6th at the Snell Community Recreation Area on Porter Avenue. It'll run from 2 to 6, and it's on the My Half Assistance Program for anyone impacted by COVID, which actually includes virtually everyone. So if you've got behind, people get behind on property taxes, mortgages, utilities, condo fees, land contracts, or even homeowners insurance, there's help out there. But the help is going to go away about the end of September. So if people want to make an application, this is the time to make it. It's being officially run by the Ingham County Treasurer, who's helping to administer this as well as the MSU Extension Service. And Katie Love is our contact there for that seminar. It'll run from 2 to 6. Lunch is provided. You can come in, bring your identification, and they will actually help you complete the entire application. Every week, we get several payments in, utilities in particular, people who in the township have applied for My Half Help are eligible, and they then get caught up, and we don't have to send additional notices or, God forbid, shut them off. So there is help out there. It's My Half, September 6th at Snell. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Next month is National Voter Registration Month, and my team is working on a number of educational opportunities to get out in the community and engage with voters, to start educating them on what the passage of Proposal 2 means and how it affects them next year. So we are working on that. And then National Voter Education Week is October 2nd through the 6th. And we will be launching a Clerks Academy. We may have taken that word from the police academy that they put on. We will be launching a Clerks Academy on a weekly basis through the month of October to, thank you for that smile, Chief Plug, to educate voters about what we do in the office, just an overview of the office, overview of the equipment, letting them work on the equipment, doing some educational opportunities, hopefully to drum up some more election workers and have more election inspectors for next year. So those are the main items that we're working on. We are also looking at a polling location for pre-election voting. And so we are vetting some locations for for where that would take place. So we're working on that as well. Hopefully at the next meeting, I can make an announcement of where that would be.
All right. Other board members? Then we'll move on to item 8, which is the approval of the agenda. Mr. DeShane.
I move the approval of the agenda as presented.
Support.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Per the previous conversation regarding Chief Plaga's retirement tribute, I would make a suggestion to the motion maker, perhaps that we could update the agenda to include the Chief Plaga retirement tribute as item 9D on the consent agenda. And then one additional thought I had was, since this is going to be one of our last opportunities to talk about the listening sessions prior to the, when a letter goes out to the community members, perhaps it would be wise for us to have that on as a discussion item for 13C.
Okay,
So if it helps to the parliamentary part of it, I can make that a motion to amend the agenda to add item 4A as item 9D and to add listening session topics as item 13C. And that would be the support.
Clerk Guthrie?
I would also like to add another item.
Well, first let's get, I guess, support for your motion
Support.
to amend.
Support.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to amend the agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Now, Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I would like to add item 9E, which is the wonderful tribute that Marna gave for Quenda's story. If we could sign that as a board and maybe send it to Quenda's to Quenda's family, I think that would be the appropriate thing to do. So I would like to add that to the agenda as well.
Support.
All in favor of the second amendment to add item 9E, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. And the chair votes yes, of course. Now, the original motion was to approve the agenda as amended now?
Yes.
Mr. DeShane, I don't think I got a second for that.
I was the second.
Second was Trustee Wilson? All in favor of the motion to approve the amended agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Chair votes yes, and our agenda is changed by 3 items. Item 9 on our agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda includes, as usual, communications, which in several cases highlight many of the items Mr. Walsh noted in terms of events going on in the township. Item 9B is the minutes of the August 1, 2023 regular Township Board meeting, and item 9C are the typical manager's bills.
And D.
Need a roll.
And now D&E that we added just now.
Oh, I'm sorry. And now 9D is the resolution in support of the tribute presented for Chief Plaga.
Yes.
I need a roll call vote, Mr.
We need a
You need a
I just want to
motion.
make sure we were looking
I'm
at,
sorry.
we were looking at 9E for the Quinda thing as well, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right.
We need a
Supervisor
motion for
Jackson.
that first.
We need a motion, then a roll call vote. All right. Do I have a motion? Trustee Wazinski,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
as amended.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wilson. Mr. Spurlock.
Supervisor Jackson.
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie.
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. There are no questions for the for the attorney. No public hearings tonight. We move now to the action items as 12A represents the special use permit number 23-012 for the W Investment Holdings at 1614 West Grand River Avenue, Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center. Mr. Director Schmidt will introduce that to us tonight.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The request in front of you this evening is final action on the special use permit for the Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center proposed at 1614 West Grand River. This is the vacant property adjacent to the Sparrow facility near the old Panera at West Grand River and Central Park Drive. This is the exact same application that was reviewed in 2020 and approved by the Township Board on April 14th. It does still continue to meet all the ordinance requirements and meets all of the standards of the updated ordinance as well that the board recently adopted. The Planning Commission held a public hearing as required earlier this year and voted to recommend approval to the board, and the board reviewed this at their last meeting and had no major concerns. At this point, staff would recommend approval of the proposed provisioning center, and which will start the clock for them to open the facility under our ordinance.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Or a motion, period?
I could read it.
Trustee Sunderland.
Yes, motion to adopt the resolution approving the request from the W Investment Holdings to construct a 4,000 square foot medical marijuana provisioning center at 1614 West Grand River Avenue. The property is zoned C2 commercial and is located within the marijuana facilities overlay district.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wazinski. Trustee Sunderland.
Oh, just, we've talked about this on several occasions, and this is just the next piece to, get everything approved through the Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center.
Okay. Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Supervisor. I would echo, this is formality. Appreciate the perseverance over the last few years, and that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. DeShane.
Director Schmidt, have we actually gotten plans for this 4,000 square foot facility, or how far along are they in terms of what they intend to construct there?
We wouldn't have received building, are you asking about building construction? We wouldn't receive building permits at this point anyway. The normal course of things, someone would get the SUP lined up. Next step would be to get the site plan approved because they will have to go through road department approval, MDOT, and Drain Commissioner's Office at the Ingham County as well. So this is still relatively early in the process for any project.
Any estimate of what 4,000 square foot facility of this nature would cost in terms of other plans you're getting into the township?
In terms of cost of construction?
Yeah.
I suspect there'll be, just for the building, I suspect there'll be 1.2 million when all's said and done. Maybe a little bit higher, but also some things are starting to come down in cost. So, we may see some reduction in construction prices in the coming year.
So if this applicant proceeds and gets their permits, they'll be making a significant contribution to the commercial infrastructure in the township.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I had a similar question to the treasurer, and we got close to an answer, but mine was relating to, this is not the first time this applicant has come before us, as you mentioned. They came several years ago with basically the same application. Did they get down the process of getting the approvals after the first time it was approved? And they had to go through that whole process again now?
No, they literally got approved, I think, a couple weeks after COVID started, so they did not proceed.
Okay, got it. And then the second question I had was more just of you piqued my interest when you said that they had their public hearing in front of the Planning Commission several months ago. Since that time, we have updated the ordinance. None of the changes that we made require them to do anything different from a functional perspective or from, they don't have to go back to the Planning Commission and see them again after the ordinance change, right?
No, from a zoning perspective, nothing changed in the ordinance that would affect the application.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Clerk Guthrie?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Is that true also for any changes that would come up with the master plan or recommendations? We've talked a lot about trees, and I see a number of trees along here on Grand River. We talked about less parking spaces. So as this application stands, does it affect this? And if this expires and a new application were to be submitted, would it change the parameters at all, given the master plan being updated?
The master plan wouldn't change anything. That's a planning document. The zoning ordinance is what affects the actual development. And so as a project goes forward, it is reviewed under the zoning ordinance that's in place at the time. If it expires and something has changed in the zoning ordinance, they, as is the case with any project, they'll need to meet the current standards when they are under review.
Anyone else? One question from me. You mentioned starting a clock. Special use permit has a time limit, is that correct?
Correct. The special use permits in this case is separate from the standards and elsewhere in the ordinance, and I am trying to find it real fast. It is, they have applicant for any commercial, they have 1 year immediately following the date of the township special use permit approval to start construction of the building. So they do need to proceed post haste.
Thank you. Any further questions? Then the motion is to adopt a resolution approving the request from the W Investment Holdings to construct a 4,000 square foot medical marijuana provisioning center at 1614 West Grand River Avenue. The property is Zone C2, commercial, and is located within the marijuana facilities overlay district. Our motion has been made and seconded appropriately. All in favor of the motion to approve, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Chair votes yes, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12B is to set the 2024 budget public hearing for September 5, 2023. Mr. Walsh will start us on this discussion.
Yeah, this is a resolution to set the date for the board to go through the budget. There will be probably about a 20 or 30-minute presentation provided to the board and to the community on the 5th. Following that will be the review and input direction from the board.
Okay? Any other input? I noted that there's something different written on the memo, but that's okay. Mr. Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I move that a public hearing be held at 6 p.m. on September 5th, 2023 for the purpose of taking comments regarding the 2024 Charter Township of Meridian recommended budget.
Support.
And Mr. Hendrickson?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. And I'm sure over the next 3 or 4 meetings, we'll be spending a lot of time discussing this topic and thanking the relevant parties for their input on creating this budget document, which I know we are all anxious to get our hands on. The motion tonight is a rather perfunctory one. We will hold a public hearing on it so the public can observe the budget, can hear from the township about the budget, and can make comment about what they've heard about the budget. And so, as a matter of transparency, I urge everyone to watch that meeting and that presentation and provide input, because, you know, we are here to serve and make sure that your tax dollars are being spent in the way that is in the best interest of all residents of Meridian. So I appreciate the opportunity to make this motion this evening.
Okay. Trustee Wilson.
I would also like to add that Manager Walsh and his staff have made opportunities available to us as trustees to do a deep dive on the budget in advance of this public hearing, and I know several of us have signed up to do so. So I'd encourage everyone who's interested to take that action.
Other comments? We have a motion for a to set a public hearing on September 5th, 2023 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of taking public comments regarding the 2024 Charter Township of Meridian recommended budget. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed to the motion, say nay. The motion I'm assuming the motion passes unanimously. And so, thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
You have something?
Well, if I may.
Yes, please.
This happened today while all of us were in the Senior Community Center meeting down at the Triangle. But the Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association presented a beautiful award today at 2 o'clock to our Hazlet Beautification Association for the Donald Leroy's Memorial Garden. So it's a Community Landscape Beautification Award for the Michigan Nursery and Landscape Association that was presented to the HBA today to Ann Perkins and the group. So I thought Mr. Opsimer was there to receive it on behalf of the township, and thought that you would all like to see that, and thanks the HBA for their efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
And thank Mr. Opsimer for us. All right, we'll move on now to item 13 on our agenda, board discussion items. And 13A is another marijuana provisioning center SUP. Mr. Schmidt?
I've been upgraded.
I know. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. These originally came back through, there's 3 medical marijuana provisioning center SUPs that the board will need to act on. We tried to line these all up so they'd all be on the same night. As you see, we've done a very good job of that. Because I also need to apologize, I appear to not have an applicant this evening, which I will take full blame for, somehow having that miscommunication, as they've, and this is the easiest one, actually. So this is the request for the overlay at the corner of Hazlet and Okemos Road, 2119 Hazlet Road. This is the shopping center. Formerly 7-Eleven was in it. This is the suite next to that. Again, previously approved by the board in March of 2020. This is an identical application. They actually did start construction previously and were stopped by COVID. And so this is along with the one on Jolly Road that did a substantial amount of construction previously. This one is very close to, would be much closer to opening back up should the SUP be granted. Planning Commission held the public hearing on this matter and had no major, had a great deal of discussion about some of the ordinance requirements, but had no major concerns specific to the application, and did recommend approval to the board. And so we are in front of you this evening for any questions or concerns you might have, and we can get back to you with answers to those at the next meeting.
Mr. Schmidt, like the one we just approved and the one before, in all 3 cases, these applications or these SUPs were approved roughly 2 years ago.
Three and a half.
Three and a
now.
half years
Yes.
ago, and nothing has changed in this case like the other two?
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, this is the exact same application. They didn't need to update anything because it was an existing building.
Okay.
Whereas the other two applications did need to update some minor things on their
Oh, they
application. Just paperwork issues on their application.
Okay. And I remember we learned in the first one that an updated traffic study was requested, and there was no, in fact, there was a diminishing of the traffic, the intensity of the traffic in the new study. And so I'm assuming that these other two did not have to do that.
This one did not require one because it's in an existing building, and so the standards, it's retail and a retail space.
Okay. Other questions? Clerk Guthrie?
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I do have a question about the resolution on page 97, the Planning Commission resolution. If this was passed, I would request a passed version signed by the Planning Commission chairperson rather than a blank version. I don't know who's seconded it, who supported it, who passed it. I don't know if this is just an example or if this actually happened, so.
Yes, ma'am, apologies. We do have the minutes in there with that information, but we will get a signed copy of the resolution.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Duchesne?
The applicant has included pictures of the proposed sign on Hazlet Road. And these signs are not covered by our sign ordinance, correct? These are covered only by our provisioning center and recreational marijuana ordinances. Is that correct? Content of these signs?
They're actually covered by both because the size and placement still has to meet our sign ordinance requirements, but you're correct. There is still the content-related regulation in the licensing ordinance.
Okay. And the content does not allow it to say marijuana in the sign. Is that correct?
Correct.
But it does say herbana, and growing up, I don't know about those two, but herb was another word for marijuana. It's kind of so are we close to the line here of pressing what the ordinance allows?
I think we would, so the way the ordinance is written, it talks about pictures, photographs, drawings, depictions of marijuana, obviously. And then it says the words marijuana, cannabis, or any other words used to or intended to convey the presence or availability of marijuana shall not appear on the outside of the permitted premises. The issue is the word is, to your point, the word is herb. And although they are conveniently playing off the name, the word urbana does not directly reference. It would be a sticky wicket to try and fight.
It would be, and likely cost us a legal challenge to enforce it, and we don't want to incur unnecessary cost. That's my question. Thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Wilson?
Tim, could you show us on the map exactly where this is? Is this part of the strip mall at that corner?
Yes.
Is it the eastern end of that strip mall?
Well, let me just take over control here from Zach.
Well, thank you.
So we are right here.
Yep. There it
In the
is.
middle.
And I went too far. Sorry about that. This is a lot harder to do on a big screen. So you are
Yep.
right here in this suite. So this is the 7-Eleven. This is the suite we're talking about, right there where the vacant sign is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, board, are we prepared to tackle this issue at our next meeting? Mr. Schmidt, will we be ready?
We will ensure the
at our
applicant
next
is here.
meeting? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Item 13B is a resolution to authorize the acceptance and adoption of the 2022 Tri-County Hazard Mitigation Plan update, being presented by Fire Chief Hamill.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, Board. So when you're a recognized emergency management program, every 5 years, they have to rewrite their hazard mitigation plan. This is the process Ingham County started doing in late '21, got a little delayed. Once it's written, and they hire a group to do it for them, so it's quite expensive, which is why you see 3 different counties that are Ingham, Eaton, and Clinton, so they can kind of share the wealth on the cost of rewriting this. And they really look at all hazards that we could deal with in Ingham County, Meridian Township, and a lot of it's historical data. So as I said, Act 390 requires them to rewrite it every 5 years, which they have done. And once they get it, the written copy done, then they have to actually have to send it to the state of Michigan to approve. Once Michigan State Police approve it, their Homeland Security group, then it goes to FEMA for approval, and that could take up to 6 months. So it's been about a month and a half, I think now, maybe 2 months since they received it back, and now we've reviewed it. And so what's recommended from the state and FEMA is for the local jurisdictions that have a stake in this, Meridian Township, to do a resolution accepting it. And so that's what I'm here for today, to recommend that, and if you have any questions or concerns, and then we can kind of move forward from there.
Okay. Trustee Wilson.
So have both the fire department and police department done a complete review of this plan?
So I don't know if the police has, if Mr. Bessinen got it or not. It's really a rewrite of what we've had for years. There was really nothing new. Our biggest hazard is and always will be weather. Now you have the man-made disasters. One that we've just dealt with over the last few years is COVID. So now you have the pandemic that we've truly lived through one, so they refined that a little bit. But really, it's just taking the plan and rewriting it with the addition of the other 2 counties adding a little bit more. That's what kind of took a little longer to boast the plan. But it's a good comprehensive plan, and really it's a map. It's not telling us how to respond. It's giving us historical data, and then they rank it on the threat. How a thunderstorm, it's a higher threat for us because we have them, ice storms, things like that. So yes, to answer your question, we've looked at it. Again, I don't know if PD's, I think Ken has, Chief has, so.
Thank you.
Trustee Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So one of the things that I noticed as I was looking through this document was Meridian was called out specifically, along with some of our other larger jurisdictions in the Tri-County area, and in terms of how they evaluated various things. One of them was related to planning for emergency situations. And I'm pleased to note that we were one of the communities with the most plans complete and on file. The 2 that we didn't have are the ones I'm going to ask about, which are stormwater management and wildfire protection. They appear to be 2 things that at least their survey indicated that we don't have. Do we actually have those, or are we working toward those at some point in the future?
That's a good question. With the stormwater, I don't know. I can do some research for you on that. In regards to wildland, we have brush fires, but I guess that's something that I should look at and work on maybe putting in place.
It feels like something that may occasionally come into effect on the eastern side of the township especially. And to be clear, there's bravos to be had across the board here, right? We have, of the other, 18 things that they've identified as key plans to have. We have 16 of them. So I don't mean to call out the two as things that we need to do better, but it did strike me as odd because it feels like stormwater management is something that we encounter relatively frequently in the township. And it sort of surprised me. It jumped out at me, surely we must have a plan for that. So I thought I would ask about it, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Trustee Buzinski.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Thank you, Trustee Hendrickson. Very good catch. I just want to mention that the Environmental Commission works on the Climate Sustainability Plan that also has a waterside management component, just so that you know it's out there. It's ever evolving, but it may be something we would want to make sure is consistent with
Definitely,
recommendations.
it's a great idea to look at that and, kind of see where we're at and compare to what Ingham County has for us all through emergency management.
Okay. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I noticed the increase in population for Meridian Township, especially in comparison to the rest of Ingham County. How does that, or does that factor into the hazard mitigation plan here in Meridian Township when you have the increase in population and a certain number of firefighters and EMS on staff? Have you also seen an increase in calls, and how do you plan for that?
Well, yeah, over the last 3 to 5 years, and Manager Walsh and I have had many conversations, our call volume's gone up in the last, since 2010, it's almost pretty much doubled. And there's a lot of reasons for that recently in regards to a shortage of paramedics, especially in the private world out there where we're picking up a lot of their backfill they can't manage. But population increase is always going to increase your call volume. We're an older community. I think 54% of our EMS revenue is from Medicare. So that tells you a lot. And then another 8 to 10% is Medicaid. And so as you continue to build senior centers, and as our population grows, then our call volume is going to continue to grow up, as well as the hospitals are going to get busier. One of the implications coming in the next, 6 or 7 years is when the baby boomers hit 65. That's going to increase a lot of medical concerns across the country. So those are all taken into effect. And yes, we constantly look at our data annually. And Frank, or Manager Walsh, I give it to him all the time on our data, just so he kind of sees where we're at and where our growth is and where our needs are. And it'll continue. We're an aging population, but a great question.
Thank you.
Other board members? Chief Hamill, I realize that you are the designated emergency management person in the township. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that relates to the question about whether or not the police department also was involved in.
Well, Sergeant Beston is also a professional emergency manager, and we haven't worked as much as we probably should. That's something we need to kind of build on, but both of us are so busy, it's really hard to connect and with his role with the police department. But we both kind of work together on if we have a disaster or any type of emergency, working with the board, working with the managers, Manager Walsh, the managers of the departments. That's how we would work through any type of program, as well as the continuity operation plan will help us a little bit also.
I also wondered whether planning and development was at all involved in the township's assessment of its readiness and this report of its readiness.
There were 2 other people, and I don't recall their names right off the top of my mind, that were involved from the township for some of the questionnaires that came out early on. I can go back and look at my emails and get that for you. I just don't remember who they were.
Okay. And my next question is, does this kind of assessment of the township's needs and vulnerabilities become included in the master plan?
So, I'm sorry. Yeah. Mr. Schmidt and I were actually talking that. He came to me and wants to put that in there. So he and I are going to work forward with that. He'll do most of the work. I'm going to give him the plan.
Okay.
But yeah, that's, Mr. Schmidt's right on that.
Okay.
Good question.
I actually did enjoy reading this document. The historical information is very interesting, and I would encourage anybody with a moment.
A few moments.
With a few moments, yeah, because it is thick. A few moments free to do so, to read it. It's very interesting. So tonight you've come to ask us to approve this resolution tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think at this point, we would need a suspension of our rules to vote on it tonight. Mr. DeShane.
So moved, we suspend our normal rules and take action on the item 13B tonight.
Support.
So this is the motion to suspend the rules, period. Okay. And supported by Clerk Guthrie. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Chair votes yes, the motion passes. Mr. DeShane.
I move to approve the updated Tri-County Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, authorize the clerk to sign the resolution, and direct the fire department to forward a copy of the resolution to Michigan State Police Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division.
Support.
Supported by Clerk Guthrie. Any further comments?
And for me.
All in favor of the motion to approve the updated Tri-County Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan and authorize the clerk to sign the resolution and direct the fire department to forward a copy of the resolution to the Michigan State Police Emergency Management and Homeland Security. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Chair votes yes, and the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
We come now to item 14 on our agenda, comments from the public.
We added 13.
13C.
Where did I leave it? Oh, the listening session discussion. Mr. Hendrickson brought the subject up. Would you like to start the discussion?
Sure. So, as the manager Walsh mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we have listening sessions planned on alternating Tuesdays from our board meetings from September through November. 6 of them, I believe. And I believe when last we spoke in June about this, the plan was to send out an initial solicitation, letting residents know this was coming, and then follow that up prior to each regional area meeting with a second letter outlining topics of discussion. And Manager Walsh was kind enough to kickstart that conversation back then and now. And so I figured that since we will only have one meeting left before those start on September 5th, and that being a relatively short turnaround to get another letter out, that it might be wise for us to settle on some topics now, so that they can move forward with that more quickly and get that out to residents so they have time to mark their calendars, since the fall can be a very busy time, especially for the families in our community. So I have some suggestions for topics, but if there's anything else that we wanted to get into before that, I'm open to that discussion too.
Are there other comments before we deal with suggestions, Mr. DeShane?
I'm glad Mr. Hendrickson brought this up and Manager Walsh initiated the conversation. We need to give the residents some idea of topics that they might be interested in. They may not like all of them, but if we just say a public meeting and listening session, that sounds kind of boring. But if we give them what's going on in the township right now, which is a lot, we're likely to get a much better turnout. So I think this is a good process, and hopefully we can come up with the list tonight.
Okay, Clerk Guthrie? Oh, whose hand is up?
Put my hand up.
Trustee Wilson.
So several of us made recommendations based on the initial ideas that the manager came up with. Do we want to speak to each of those items and make a decision what we're going to cover? They were extremely similar, so that I think we're all basically on the same page about what we think should be covered, and I agree with Treasurer DeShane. It should be items that are of interest to our community, keep it lively, tell them what's going on, answer questions, and so on. But we do want to listen. That's the purpose of this exercise.
Okay, so there is, to your point, there is a list that was started online.
Yes.
Of topics to include. Would you like to read that list off, and we can compare that list of suggestions to Mr. Hendrickson's list of suggestions?
I can try and consolidate this down to the comments that were made. So the first thing, not the first in order of importance, but the senior/community center project. Local roads, everyone commented on local roads, the status. One of the points I made is nobody knows who's in charge of the roads, so it'd be great to have some clarification which roads are state, county, and local. Potential new recycling center. There was a solar and sustainability update. That's kind of the whole green effort made by the township, the way I see it. There were a number of items related to police and fire. One was the police chief recruitment that we're going to undertake, the staffing of both the fire department and the police department. Hang on. There's also the warning sirens came up on several reports, how we're covering the township with our warning sirens, especially in light of what happened in Hawaii. And then crime prevention I added because if those of you who are paying attention to crime mapping, we have had some interesting and more frequent forays into our neighborhood and break-ins of unlocked vehicles. Taxes was another topic. Where the money goes, what portion of it stays here in Meridian Township as opposed to going to all the local taxing entities such as LCC and the airport and the library system and so on. Economic development and touching on the village of Okemos. This is a constant topic, at least in Okemos, to know what the status of that project is. Frank suggested parks and recreation recruitment for a new director. And what's happening in downtown Hazlet. Let me see if there's anything else. These are not in order. Then Deborah suggested that we talk about voting, the permanent voting list, absentee list, how early voting is going to be conducted, where and when, and the updates to Proposal 2. And a big shout out for what we're doing in terms of township events and offerings, the Marketplace on the Green, the Health and Safety Fair, Celebrate Meridian, the Pride activity, Juneteenth. We have a whole lot of things to be proud of, so it'd be great to just run through those two. And township financial health. How are we doing? Those are the things I see. That's a lot.
Now, let's go back to Mr. Hendrickson first.
Thank you. So I appreciate having someone else read through the list because it gave me an opportunity to sort of think about how we might consolidate that into a digestible list that's where brevity is key because you might not have long of people reading the flyer, right?
Yeah.
So what I heard was I think that list can be consolidated down into maybe 4 items that we might want to seek. We want to hear from the community about, and that list is roads and infrastructure, public safety, which I think covers a number of those different topics, community engagement, and economic development. I think that covers a lot of what we heard from Manager Walsh and others who chimed in. And I think that might be helpful to, have a brief list like that. And we can cover some of these subtopics within that as they come up at the different sessions. But part of, I think, the benefit of having these sessions is that we don't have a lengthy prescribed agenda, right? We have some, a skeleton of things that we think they might want to talk about, but maybe point number 5 is whatever else you have to bring to the board's attention. Because part of the virtue of this is that there might be things out there that we don't know about, that people want to talk about, and this is a good opportunity for that.
I'm sorry, I missed one of those.
Roads and infrastructure, public safety, community engagement, and economic developments were the 4 that I heard that seemed like relatively broad topics.
And your contention is that covers in some way all of the things that Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. DeShane.
I think it covers it, but we know what those 4 topics mean, but the people reading this are not going to know what those 4 things mean. So if we don't break out what economic development we're talking about there, that people don't know that economic development means what's happening downtown Okemos or why has that happening. So I think we can have the 4 broad topics, but then small bullets underneath them say, and including these topics. But it's a great idea to categorize them, and it'll keep us focused as well when we're discussing them with the public. But I think we do want to tell them what we mean by those topics, just to spur their interest and their reason for wanting to come out and engage with us. I like your 5th topic as well. That's to let them know that whenever they can come with their own topic, and we're going to be there to listen to them. That's the point.
That's the whole point,
Yep.
is listening. We don't, I presume we don't want to take up all the time telling them stuff. We want, these are the things we are prepared to talk about, but, we don't want to spend the whole time telling them what we know about these things going on. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I couldn't agree more. I mean, if it's a listening session, the number 1 topic is listening to the residents of Meridian Township and allowing them the opportunity to ask whatever it is that they want. I agree with these categories. I don't think it needs to be broken down that much more than what you mentioned. I mean, obviously, we're there to answer any questions that people have. If they want to ask about early voting, I can answer the question. So I don't need it in a list necessarily, because I'm there to listen to people and what they have. And I think that these suggested 4 topics, but highlighting that, like the supervisor said, that we're there to listen, and that's the purpose, is listening to the residents.
So it has been suggested that we have a short introduction that essentially lays out, these are the topics we are prepared to talk about and we think you might be interested in, but in a very short introductory way. And then to encourage people to ask their questions or offer their comments and ideas. Certainly in that realm. Trustee Wilson.
I would suggest that we'll overwhelm our groups that are coming if we go into all 4 topics at the beginning. So I'm going back to an exercise that we went to. Trustee Hendrickson and I attended the listening session with public safety. It's a quarterly meeting with all the neighborhoods. And what did we hear about? Roads. It was roads, roads, roads. So I'm going to suggest that roads be our first topic. And we can take questions on the roads and so on, and then go to the second topic and get questions answered on that, and then the third and the fourth. I think it would make it clearer, and I think the discussion would be more directed to those specific things that people want to talk about if we did that kind of a format. That would be my suggestion.
Trustee Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Thank you for reading the list. That was super helpful. And consolidating them, of course, but I do agree with Treasurer DeShane, we can consolidate, but I do think what is infrastructure, right? Not everybody really, you have a good idea, but you don't truly understand that roads falls within there, right? So I kind of like that, and I have a question for Supervisor. We're going to notify the public first, right? So that's where this information's going. We don't necessarily have to have an agenda when we get there. But lead the conversation, like you can lead the conversation. I think we are missing one important category, if in fact, listening to Trustee Wilson's list, but the potential recycling center, the solar update, and the Parks and Rec director fall within the environmental health and sustainability. I think that's really important to this community. So if we wanted to add a category, I would recommend that one.
Environmental health and sustainability.
Those are my words. You can.
Those are nice words. I like that.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, and thank you, Trustee Wazinski, for adding that. I concur with that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
So our conclusion is,
Sounds like we have 6 topics.
We
One
have
of them
6
being
big
anything
topics.
else, and then the five that we discussed.
okay.
Right.
Okay. And I will note that Mr. Walsh has consented to helping us,
Craft a letter.
craft a start for discussions on these 6 topics.
Yeah, if I may?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. The last time we talked, it was decided, I believe it was decided, that each one of you would kind of kick off one of the individual meetings. So if it's okay, we'll just send out a schedule. Maybe try to put people in, board members in neighborhoods that they represent if possible, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll send that out with all 7 of you. 6, and then we'll have one double up, or if someone can't make that or doesn't prefer to do one of the presentations. But what we envisioned is that the first 15 minutes would be just like a little overview from one of the board members. We're looking at 90 minutes is what we set aside for the first 15, just to kick it off about some of the things that are going on from those topics. And maybe it is just a discussion later. Let's start with roads. But I also think proposal 2 is pretty daunting to people about what's happening in 9 days early voting and what does that all mean? So it may be a topic that comes up, and maybe the clerk asks each group during the evening, does anyone have questions about the new voting law? So I think you're just kind of leaving it wide open a little bit and not rigid, and you kind of know what you want to talk about. We'll set up a schedule for you, and we'll get a letter out in 2 weeks. We'll get a letter out. We're sending letters out 2 weeks early. So the first letter will go out at the end of August for the September 12th meeting. And we will, I would say, I hate to use the word tease, but we'll take your topics: roads, police, fire for public safety, economic development. We might mention the village of Hazlet and downtown Okemos. And also we want to hear your ideas, how we'll put that all together. So we'll use your topics, but listening to all of you, we'll tease it a little bit with some of the pertinent information, and we'll get the letter out, we'll get a schedule out, and if the schedule doesn't work, then we can rearrange it. But we'll start there, if that makes sense to the board.
Okay. Mr. DeShane.
What about refreshments? We've been on offering like cookies and lemonade or tea, whatever. I think we should do that.
We do.
Okay, good.
Yes, that's planned.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Except for when we cut the ribbon out here. No drinks. On a new carpet. That's what's coming here.
That's where he's going.
Yeah, that's been duly noted. It's been told to me that's the way it's going to be. The staff has told me.
What was that?
People who have put a lot of time into this building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could I suggest as well, in these topics, for all of us, could you provide something like your monthly update of on all of the projects and activities in the township for us to begin to work with?
Certainly, thank you, and that is the plan, to have a, like a bullet point, like a little paragraph on each topic, we've got big stuff coming in police and, it's important to know, I mean, something that, I'm really proud about, and I know Chief Hamill and his entire team is really proud about, and I think Chief Plaga and his team as well, that if this budget gets approved here in the next 4 weeks, we will have increased our public safety staffing by 13%. 13%. We had 39 police, we had 30 fire, and this budget goes up and gets us close to 70. So those are the kind of, I think, pieces of information that the board will want to share with the public, and we'll have those in bullet points for you, and you can pick, and it'll be more information than you'll want to share.
Right.
And then you can pick and choose what you want to share. Or if topics come up, you'll have a good synopsis of it in front of you.
I would appreciate that. Other comments, questions, ideas? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We'll continue to work on this.
Thank you. I appreciate the discussion. You've made our job, the team's job, a lot easier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're at item 14, comments from the public. The members of the public who would like to speak to the board at this time, if you would come to the podium, give us your name and address, and your comments.
Hello, my name is Roger Taylor, 6089 East Lake Drive, and I'd like some clarity on these marijuana places that are going in. I don't know if Tim is here or not, but I'd like to know, he said something about recreational. It says medical here, but is this a recreational marijuana that's going in, or is it a medical? Because in his verbiage, I heard, I don't know if my tinnitus is acting up, but I heard recreational coming out from it.
Okay.
So,
Is that the, is that the end of your comments?
no,
Okay.
no, the other thing I'd like to know is the drive-in, the old land that's open over there by Myers. What are we doing with that? Have we decided to do anything with that? That land structure, is it going to be filled with businesses, or the old drive-in, remember?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Is that
that's it to my
it?
comments.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, are you willing to address those questions at this time?
Always willing at the board's discretion. The applications in front of you this evening are medical marijuana only. The board has not established the criteria for how they will review the recreational marijuana applications, nor has a window been opened. So this is entirely medical under the ordinance that was adopted in 2018-19. The drive-in site, there are no plans at this time for development of that site. We have not had an application since 2020, at which time that application really didn't get anywhere. People are certainly looking at the site, and we've taken some phone calls, but nothing of any concrete that I'm able to share at this time.
Okay, if I may, we don't know about the anything about the drive-in.
We know nothing about the drive-in at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor, if you would, before you leave, fill out the green form. Anyone else? All right, are there item 15 is other matters and board member comments. Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I would suggest for Mr. Taylor, there is a section on the township website where you can sign up for weekly newsletters, and the communications department puts out information about businesses and board happenings and any new developments that are happening in the township. And I think it would help, keep you abreast of those kinds of things, or maybe meet with Mr. Schmidt afterward to get his information, to contact him anytime you'd like with questions. That's my only comment.
Okay. Anyone else?
Sign up for weekly newsletters.
Then we stand adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? We can stand adjourned.
All right, excellent.